By the time 2026 arrived, LingOrm was no longer just a name whispered in fan circles or trending hashtags. It had become a force. A phenomenon built not overnight, but through years of carefully controlled visibility, emotional restraint, and a chemistry so precise it felt intentional, yet so natural it seemed accidental. Lingling, Kwong, and Kornnaphat entered the year standing at a crossroads few duos ever reach. Adored, scrutinized, and powerful in equal measure. What followed was not simply another chapter in their careers, but a calculated, quietly ambitious agenda that would redefine how far a GL pairing could go. From the outside, everything looked effortless. Appearances were polished, interviews graceful, smiles perfectly timed. But behind that surface lay a 2026 roadmap shaped by pressure, expectation, and a growing awareness that LingOrm was no longer just serving a genre. They were representing a global audience that saw themselves reflected in the smallest gestures, the softest glances, and the silences between words. The year ahead was never going to be ordinary. The first major shift came with confirmation that LingOrm would return to television in a new GL series, a project far more emotionally complex than anything they had done before. This was not a repeat of familiar tropes, nor a safe continuation of past success. The story was built around maturity, commitment, and the quiet fractures that appear when love is tested by time rather than circumstance. Industry insiders described it as a deliberate evolution, one designed to age with the audience that had grown alongside LingOrm. For Lingling, the role demanded emotional restraint layered with vulnerability, a performance that relied more on what remained unsaid than on overt expression. For ORM, it required discipline, grounding her natural brightness into something heavier, more introspective. Together, the series marked a turning point, signaling that LingOrm was ready to be taken seriously not just as a pairing, but as artists. Yet the series was only one piece of the agenda. What truly signaled the scale of 2026 was their expansion beyond entertainment and into global influence. When LingOrm appeared at high-profile fashion events wearing Dior, it was immediately clear this was not a one-off collaboration. Their presence was intentional, strategic, and unmistakably powerful. Dior did not simply dress LingOrm. It aligned itself with their image. Elegant, controlled, modern, and emotionally resonant. Every appearance generated waves of discussion, from the symbolism of their outfits to the way they stood beside one another, never overly performative, yet undeniably connected. Fashion critics began to note something rare. LingOrm wasn't modeling clothes. They were embodying a narrative. As official Dior ambassadors, Lingling and ORM stepped into rooms previously reserved for legacy celebrities and global elites. Paris, Milan, Seoul. Each appearance widened their reach and shifted perception. They were no longer viewed solely as Thai actresses or GL icons, but as cultural figures with international relevance. Fans noticed the change immediately. The confidence was sharper. The silence between them more deliberate. The message was clear. LingOrm had entered a new tier. While the fashion world embraced them, the fandom expanded in ways no one could fully predict. 2026 became the year of LingOrm's global fan takeover. Events were no longer confined to Thailand or neighboring regions. Fan meetings turned into international gatherings, drawing supporters from multiple continents. What made these events remarkable was not just their scale, but their tone. LingOrm never leaned into spectacle. Instead, they focused on intimacy, eye contact, shared stories, unguarded laughter. Fans didn't leave feeling entertained. They left feeling seen. That emotional connection became their greatest currency. Behind the scenes, however, the pressure was immense. Every appearance carried weight. Every interaction was recorded, analyzed, replayed. Lingling, known for her internal processing, reportedly struggled at times with the expectation to remain endlessly composed. ORM, often perceived as fearless, felt the strain of constantly being on, aware that any shift in behavior could spark speculation. Yet rather than allowing the pressure to divide them, it refined their partnership. They became more intentional with one another, checking in privately, grounding each other before stepping into public spaces, maintaining a shared understanding that what they were building extended far beyond individual ambition. Rumors, of course, followed. They always do when a duo becomes this influential. Some questioned whether the intensity was sustainable. Others speculated about boundaries between performance and reality. LingOrm never addressed these rumors directly, and that silence became part of their power. They understood something crucial. Mystery, when handled with respect, deepens engagement. By refusing to over-explain, they allowed fans to connect on an emotional level rather than a transactional one. As 2026 progressed, subtle shifts in their public dynamic became noticeable. They spoke with more confidence, paused longer before answering questions, and allowed moments of silence to exist without rushing to fill them. These were not accidents. LingOrm was no longer reacting to fame. They were shaping it. What made their agenda particularly compelling was how balanced it remained. Despite the global exposure, luxury partnerships, and packed schedules, LingOrm resisted overexposure. Projects were spaced carefully. Public appearances were selective. This restraint only increased demand. Fans began to realize that every LingOrm moment was intentional, and that understanding created trust. In an industry driven by constant visibility, LingOrm chose presence over saturation. By the latter half of the year, it became clear that LingOrm's 2026 agenda was not about domination. It was about legacy. They were laying the groundwork for longevity in a space that often burns bright and fades quickly. The new series demonstrated artistic growth. Dior represented global recognition. Fan events reinforced emotional loyalty. Each element supported the others, forming a structure that felt sustainable rather than explosive. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of LingOrm's rise was how human it remained. Despite the glamour, the accolades, and the international reach, moments of vulnerability still surfaced. In interviews, Lingling spoke about learning to protect her emotional energy. As the year drew on, one thing became undeniable. LingOrm had redefined what a GL duo could be. They were no longer limited by genre, geography, or expectation. They had become a case study in modern celebrity. How to build influence without losing authenticity. How to engage fans without exploiting them. How to grow without erasing the foundation that made the growth possible. By the end of 2026, LingOrm was no longer being compared to other duos. They had become the reference point. A symbol of how far intention, discipline, and emotional intelligence could take a partnership. What began as a single GL series had evolved into a global narrative, one written not just on screen, but across stages, runways, and the hearts of millions watching from afar. And perhaps that is the greatest revelation of LingOrm's 2026 agenda. It was never about revealing everything. It was about revealing just enough to prove that their story is still unfolding, and that the most powerful chapters are yet to come.